Hey everyone, Dave here with another Blu-ray DVD collection update / haul video. This is one for the months of December 22 to January 23. In this one, we're going to be taking a look at one of the latest waves from Imprint Films, Wave 23. This is the November 2022 wave. Quite a few titles to take a look at here, so let's get into it. We're going to kick this one off, as I said at the beginning of this. These are the November 22 Imprint titles. This is Wave 23. I do want to say, before we kick into it though, all of the transfers here are really good. I didn't have any issues with any of them. I realize I spend a lot of time in these videos talking about the transfers and I end up just saying the same thing about every single title. So I'm going to say from the top here that everything here is good. These are all very filmic looking movies. There might be one or two in here that I'll speak a little bit on, but other than that, pretty much across the board, these are all pretty decent releases. We've got about 8 titles to take a look at here, so let's get into it. We'll start with imprint number 170, which is Testament. Imagine a day like any other. The children are fighting, the refrigerator is humming, highways are jammed, playgrounds are filled, but an ordinary day like any other ends abruptly with a startling TV news bulletin, followed moments later by a blinding flash. This edition comes complemented by 2 brand new audio commentaries and 3 archival featurettes. Testament is yet another example of Imprint getting out a long sought after title for many collectors. This is one of those kind of cult films that, I've for years have heard people crying to get this one out there on Blu-ray. This is kind of like a post-apocalyptic dramatic thriller. I didn't really love it. I do understand, a lot of these cult movies, they're not for absolutely everybody, and in most cases it came out at a specific time where it just kind of really connected with a certain subset of an audience, and that's how it becomes like a cult favorite. I didn't love this one personally. I thought it was pretty slow. It was a little bit boring, particularly for a post-apocalyptic kind of thriller. It more hinges on the dramatic side. It's more of kind of like a dive into the human psyche and what we all do in this kind of final moment of need. It's not a big, flashy, overblown, sort of like Roland Emmerich or Jerry Bruckheimer kind of disaster movie. For that, this is a pretty interesting take on this genre, and I am glad that I did get a chance to check it out, and I've got it in my collection here, but again, it just wasn't one for me. What I did really love about this one, though, is a very, very early, if not the very first film role of Kevin Costner. He's one of my favorite actors. This is one of his films I had never seen, so again, that's another one I can tick off right there as well. The transfer on this one isn't brand new. It has come directly from Paramount. It's a 1080p transfer. I believe that this is probably an older master that's been ported onto the Blu-ray, but as I said at the top of this one, no issues with any of the transfers here. This one looked perfectly fine. Next up is number 171, Save the Tiger, starring Jack Lemmon. Harry Stoner believes there is nothing significant in his life except survival, and that instinct pushes him beyond moral conduct. He'll juggle the books, supply women for clients, and even set fire to his own dress manufacturing factory. He is drawn to an America where life not only had values and heroes, it all seemed worth living and building. This edition comes complemented by a brand new audio commentary as well as a archival audio commentary. It includes a brand new video essay, Ammo for Shooting Clouds, by film historian and filmmaker Daniel Kremer. It also includes 2 brand new interviews, one with film director Lloyd Kaufman and one with actress Laurie Heineman. It also includes an archival vintage interview with Jack Lemmon and a theatrical trailer. If you are a regular viewer of these videos, you know that I am a big fan of Jack Lemmon. Of course, Lemmon is more predominantly known for his comedic work. There are a few examples throughout his career of him doing dramatic roles. Not many, but there are a few. This is one of the very, very rare, incredibly dramatic roles that Lemmon tackled. I really would like to see him do more, because all comedians, you find are pretty good dramatic actors. We think of people like Robin Williams or Jim Carrey, even Adam Sandler is terrific in dramatic roles, and Jack Lemmon was terrific at this. This is the very first film that earned him an Academy Award for Best Actor. He had previously won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for Mr. Roberts in the mid-1950s. This film right here, Save the Tiger, sort of comes towards the back end of his career, the kind of mid to back end of his career, the middle 1970s, and it's terrific. terrific. It is a really, really great performance. The movie itself, I feel, doesn't really hold up that well today. It is a little bit drab, it is a little bit boring, it goes on just a little bit too long, and it's very, very slow. But that said, Jack Lemmon's performance in this movie is really what we are here for, and he keeps this one going. He's the thing that keeps you interested in this movie from beginning to end, and the arc of his character is really, really wonderful. If you're a fan of Jack Lemmon, I would certainly recommend checking this one out. Otherwise, if you're on the fence about it, maybe pick this one up in a sale or something. It's definitely worth watching, but it's not an essential. Next up, we've got number 172, The Molly Maguires, starring Richard Harris and Sean Connery. A secret society of Millicent's coal miners battle their exploitation by the mine owners with violence and intimidation, and sometimes murder. A detective on undercover assignment fights his own conscience while attempting to gain the trust of the tough and suspicious leader of the Mollies. This edition comes complemented by 2 brand new audio commentaries, as well as a brand new video essay. Again, we've got another much beloved sort of, I guess, cult classic that people have been clamoring for on Blu-ray for a long, long time, and Imprint finally pulls through with it. This is a movie I've heard a lot about over the years and really, really just wanted to check it out. Of course, I'm a fan of Sean Connery's work and really, really happy to finally get a chance to have a look at this one. Unfortunately, it was one that I just felt a little bit underwhelmed with. It's fairly long. It's another movie that just feels very long and just very slow and didn't really keep my interest the entire way through. All the performances here are great. Sean Connery is great in this. Richard Harris is great in this. There are some really great kind of action sequences, big sort of blow up, fist kind of fight action sort of stuff. It's a lot of fun, but it is not as big and bombastic as I was kind of expecting it. It's very politically driven, it is very dramatic, and it's just, it's a good movie. It's just not the movie that I was expecting out of it. Now, I did say I was going to speak too much about the transfers on these. This is the only one that I felt maybe just a little bit disappointed with. This is an older master from Paramount, I believe. Again, the case only specifies this is a 1080p transfer from Paramount. That indicates to me that it's not a new transfer, it's an older transfer, and it certainly looks like this could be like a DVD era transfer. There's quite a bit of DNRing going on here. There is, you know, the grain management is really quite awful. It's a very soft picture, and at some points, very blurry kind of picture as well, waxy. Again, probably detrimented by whatever DNR process has been applied to this one. It's not the most awful looking thing. Look, the movie is pretty grungy and dirty to begin with. It's not a colourful movie. It's a very earthy movie, and it is supposed to look dirty and it's supposed to look grungy, so I think I can give it a pass for this transfer. It would have been nicer to maybe have it a little bit sharper, a little bit crisper, but I think given the circumstances of what this movie is and what it's about, I'm going to give it a pass, and I'm going to again give Imprint a pass for using this one for their collection right here. Would have been nicer to get a better transfer, but I don't know, maybe it was inherent to the elements or something like that. It's certainly not the worst. Reasonably happy with this, and if you are a big fan of the movie, this is definitely one you want to pick up. Next up, we've got number 173, North Dallas 40, starring Nick Nolte. An aging ball player who, through a woman he meets, is drawn away from the masculine, violent world in which he has lived so long, and in doing so, finds himself at odds with the team's management. This edition is complemented by a brand new introduction by the film's director, Ted Kotcheff, a brand new audio commentary with Kotcheff. It also includes a brand new piece where Ted Kotcheff remembers North Dallas 40 and a brand new video essay. North Dallas 40 is a movie that I actually never heard of before. I'm not incredibly familiar with Nick Nolte's work. I've of course seen a few movies here and there. I couldn't really name any off the top of my head except for 48 Hours and Another 48 Hours. I know I've seen him in quite a few things, but I'm not incredibly familiar with his work. So this was a pretty interesting one for me to dive into and explore. I really like this movie. I came out really enjoying this. It's a really great sort of dramatic piece. It kind of gears itself as a sports movie, but it is more of a kind of dramatic look at the way, I guess in a way this is a very kind of ahead of its time movie because it tackles these ideas of toxic masculinity and especially how that kind of affects people in sports. You know, these are issues that have kind of become fairly prevalent and very relevant today, but this is not something that really was spoken about all that much back in the past, especially in the late 1970s when this movie was made, when sportsmen were big and they were buff and, you know, they were men. This movie is about this guy who kind of ends up questioning everything about himself. What is his worth? Who is he as a man? What defines him as a man? I think it's a really, really interesting look into that kind of male psyche, in that I can't think of another example where I've seen this in cinema prior to maybe the last decade or so. This is a very good movie with a very, very good performance by Nick Nolte and pretty much everyone else in it. And if you're a fan of even just sports movies or these kinds of, you know, human drama, this is definitely a movie you want to check out. Next up, we've got number 174, Pretty Baby, starring Brooke Shields and Susan Sarandon. E.J. Belloc is a photographer obsessed with prostitutes in New Orleans' red light district. Violet, a young girl, bewitches Belloc with her curiosity and naive coquettiveness. This movie is presented in a brand new high-definition presentation from a new 4K scan by Paramount Pictures and is complemented by a brand new audio commentary, a new interview with Brooke Shields talking about her experience of innocence on Pretty Baby, and a brand new video essay by filmmaker and film historian Daniel Kremer. Now, this is one I did not like whatsoever. This is a very controversial film in film history. Again, the subject matter here is prostitution and kind of child exploitation. It tells a true story of things that happened in the past during this time in history that the movie is set, but it does it in a way that the movie sort of ends up being an exploitative piece in itself. There are a lot of defenders of this movie. I personally cannot be one of them. This is a very, very uncomfortable film to watch. It was a movie where I just kind of, at about the midway point, there's a sequence kind of in the middle where you kind of realize, what the hell am I watching? And I ended up just maybe kind of tuning out a little bit because I was not expecting this and I really did not want to be watching this. Brooke Shields was very, very young in this role. She was only 12 years old. This is her breakthrough role and it has gone down as being very, very controversial for some certain things that they had her do in this movie. Brooke Shields was very famously known as a child model before she got into becoming an actress, and you know, controversially, she was very highly sexualized at a very, very young age. There's a lot of more safeguards that prevent films like this ever being made and prevent the kind of exploitation that happened to young performers like Brooke Shields from ever happening again today. I hate this movie. Very few movies that I hate, but I absolutely hate this movie, and I cannot recommend it to anybody out there. Next, we've got number 175, Come Back, Little Sheba, starring Burt Lancaster and Shirley Booth. 2 decades after their hasty wedding, Doc and Lola are stuck in a deadening and loveless marriage. When a beautiful young lodger enters their home, long-repressed emotions explode. Now we've got an early 50s classic starring the great Burt Lancaster. Now again, Burt Lancaster is a performer who I've never really become all that familiar with. This one here was quite an enjoyable movie. It's long, it's a little bit tedious to get through. It's based on a stage play by William Ing. I'm not too familiar with Ing's other works, but this very much felt like a sort of Tennessee Williams sort of adaptation. If we think of something like Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, it feels very much like that, in which it's almost like a direct translation from the stage play onto the screen. I'm not usually a huge fan of these kind of stagey movies, but I give them a little bit of a pass when it's a vintage film, particularly from the 50s, 60s, even earlier, because those movies at the time were very stagey to begin with. More modern ones, like for example Fences, which starred Denzel Washington, just not a movie I really enjoyed, because it just felt too, that kind of staginess just felt too much of a stark contrast of the movie that it was. But this one right here, very interesting. I love, and particularly with these older movies, you can really kind of, it's a really great way to explore the performances of the actors, and this is a really great showcase of Burt Lancaster's performance style and his prowess as a performer. But look, it's a decent movie. It's a very good drama, and if you're into these kind of stagey movies, I think it's one that's definitely worth having a look at. Next, we've got number 176, The Rose Tattoo. This one also stars Burt Lancaster and Anna Magnani. Serafina Del Rose, who has retreated from the world following the death of her beloved husband, reawakens to life's joys when she meets Alvaro, a happy-go-lucky truck driver who has the same sunny openness her husband had, even the same occupation, and on his chest is the same symbol of love, the rose tattoo. This movie is presented in a brand new high-definition presentation from a new 4K scan by Paramount Pictures, and is complemented by a brand new audio commentary by film historian Alan K. Rody, and a new piece on Anna Magnani by filmmaker Rob Nilsson. And a vintage documentary, Burt Lancaster Daring to Reach. So of course we've got another movie here starring Burt Lancaster. This one actually is based on a Tennessee Williams play. I didn't enjoy this one as much as Comeback Little Sheba. I thought this one was a little too stagey, a little too hammy, over the top. Lancaster's performance here really isn't that great. He is playing a sort of really dopey guy, and it's kind of, I guess, a little off form for what he normally does, and I think in turn, it just isn't the right role for him. He just can never really quite embody this character without it sort of coming off as maybe a bit of a farce, and this is certainly a dramatic movie. Anna Magnani is terrific in this one, however. She delivers an absolute powerhouse performance that would win her an Oscar, won her the Academy Award for Best Actress. She'd later be nominated for another role as well, but didn't win, so this was her one and only Oscar role. For that fact, if you're one who's really keen on seeking out movies that have big Oscar wins, like Best Picture or Best Actress or Best Actor or any of those, this is definitely one that you do want to check out. Just wasn't a movie that I really fell in love with. And finally, we've got number 177, Warning Shot, starring David Jansen. Sergeant Tom Valance has fatally shot what he perceived to be an armed suspect, but the man's purported weapon is nowhere to be found. Ignoring public outcry, Valance sets out to gather the puzzle's pieces, produce the missing gun, and clear his name. This edition is complemented by a single special feature, a brand new audio commentary by film historians Howard S. Berger and Steve Mitchell. So we've got kind of a spy crime thriller from the late 1960s. It feels very much in style with like James Bond and the whole kind of spy film revival that was going on at the time because of the James Bond movies. This does feel like a very British movie. It isn't. It is in fact an American film, but it is certainly inspired particularly by the British spy thrillers, crime capers of the time. It also feels kind of a bit cheap, and I was kind of wondering why, and when I looked into it a little bit more, this was actually a made-for-television movie, but because it's so violent and because the subject matter was so dark, they decided to release it theatrically instead. So this doesn't really feel like a big theatrical film. It does feel like a little bit of a kind of a hammy, made-for-TV kind of spy thing. This wasn't really my thing. I didn't really get into this movie at all. I'm not really a huge fan of this kind of sub-genre right here. I do love the early James Bond movies, but the whole kind of spy craze from around the 1960s, early 70s is not something that I particularly really love. But if you are into these kinds of movies, I think this is one that's definitely worth checking out. And with that, that is this entire, 23rd wave of imprint films from October 2022. Overall, this is not an incredibly strong wave for me. There wasn't really anything in here that I absolutely loved. A couple of good movies in here that I really did enjoy, but most of these were just kind of a little bit underwhelming for me. I didn't really love any of these, but we do have a couple of fantastic waves coming up. I actually have them in hand at the moment. I'm working my way through them, and And once again, I should get reviews out for those sometime January, February, hopefully. There's so many titles, I'm just really powering my way through them at the moment. Once again, thanks so much for sticking with me and watching this video. Apologies again for the delay in getting more of these out there. I have got another couple planned to drop over January. We've got a bunch of Umbrella stuff to take a look at. We've got some stuff from kicks.com.au. We've also got some personal pickups to look at too. So over the next couple of weeks or so, I'll be uploading some more videos. Until then though, take it easy. I'll see you in the next one.